Questions, comments? Yes, Judd. With or without sarcasm? No, with or without sarcasm. Great.
I'm actually going to ask a question about semantics, because I love the way our colleague from MUSC said entrepreneurial telemedicine. And I've wrestled through this meeting that every time somebody says direct-to-consumer telemedicine, which we actually do, they really mean Teladoc, American Well, MD Live, and Doctors on Demand. And so I kind of feel like our on-demand program, which is direct-to-consumer, where we open a medical record and we coordinate care, all of a sudden looks like crap as we talk about direct-to-consumer telemedicine. But I love the fact that, I'm not sure entrepreneurial telemedicine is the right word, but maybe it is. But I like the fact that we need to separate out studies done by for-profit companies from care provided by not-for-profit companies. And I think we will, as health systems, get screwed and swept up in the language if we're criticizing the for-profit companies, but talking about the same use case that is done by not-for-profit healthcare providers. So it's actually a plea for us to change our semantics and our language around the things we're criticizing and be really clear that not-for-profit and for-profit are different entities.
Judd, a question came up earlier today, and I'd like your input on it as part of a discussion. What about academic institutions, nonprofit institutions, that spin off a for-profit entity or that begin reselling whatever they've developed to other health systems? Where does that fit in the mix? All right, great. Curtis, you had a comment. Oh, and then John, sorry.
Yeah. I guess the consults, the encounters aren't all the same, right? Some things could theoretically prevent somebody from going to the ER. Mm-hmm. In what we did is that at our school, pregnant women were showing up at the ER and inundating the ER, and the ER director said I needed to do something about it. So we gave them a number to our call center. They'd call our call center, and then we'd have a triage protocol, and it didn't really have an effect on it, because at the end, a nurse got afraid, and if they couldn't resolve it, they'd send them to the ER. Then we said, okay, but then don't send them to the ER. You call the house staff, and rather than send them to the ER, and they call the house staff. And it dropped off after that, because the doctors then were in a position to say, well, we'll see you in the clinic tomorrow, or, whatever. So we did effectively do it. We were incentivized to do that, though, because it was our people. We didn't want to go to the ER. We were spending money out of our system to do that. And so that worked. So, mm-hmm. All these things, they can't be created equal. Some of them probably do prevent ER visits, and some don't.
Yeah, I think it's a spectrum, and if you think about it, I think every program in telehealth, there's some degree of, we're for the good of the patient, for the good of the health system, and there is some degree of maybe we can make some money on this. And I don't think there's no big cutoff. There's not a cutoff point or a huge step up, step down in that. I think everybody kind of falls along that spectrum somewhere. And so it is incredibly difficult to try to make a distinction based solely on that. And I should point out, nowhere in the pediatric operating procedures does the word entrepreneurial appear. We addressed certain practices in telehealth that are more commonly used for entrepreneurial purposes, but we didn't mention that. We don't actually talk about anybody making any money in any way. There may have been a word profit at some point. So, I think when you talk about this sort of thing, and I spent the day yesterday on the Hill, and we would reference the study, because we were saying we want Medicare to include the home as an originating site, right? Mm-hmm. And we said, because that's incredibly important. And I said, what you're going to hear as this debate moves forward, somebody is going to reference this study. And they're going to reference this study because they're going to say it shows that telehealth increases utilization without showing a commensurate decrease in cost. And when you hear that, you have to be aware that that is talking about a specific telemedicine program and a specific approach. And it's actually a really great example of exactly of how the way you design your program, the target of your program, the disease process you're targeting, all of that determines those outcomes. So we were encouraging them, if you target chronic diseases and medically complex patients, then you can have an immense impact with very little cost on that population of patients.
Thanks, Dave.
By going into the home.
I'm going to have to cut you off. I'm getting the red flag from him back. But
wait a minute, it's
John,
about the incentives, though, right? If you're for a private company and you get paid per phone call and nothing bad happens to you if they go to the ER, you're not incentivized to do that. So the incentives aren't aligned.
All right. Great point, Curtis. John,
So,
you were going to make a comment, and then I think I'm getting people running towards me now.